How's it guys, Jamie DCO here. This is part 1 in my FPV series on basic setup, making of a few parts that you're going to need to make, and getting ready to fly FPV on 5.8 gigahertz. My tutorial is going to be based more towards the multi-rotor scene. The multi-rotor scene, there's a lot more electrical noise on the craft than there is on an aeroplane. So if you build your setup for the multi-rotor scene, it's going to work on your plane regardless. It's just that it's got a few more bits and pieces to make it work nicely on your multi-rotor. Okay, we're going to start off with the antennas. So I normally just go out, well, I don't go out, I actually order them from China, from SunSky Online. It's a SMA to SMA extension, 15 centimeter or 6 inch. I've got 4 of them with me here, so I'm going to be making 4 antennas. You're going to want to cut them to length. These short ones are going to be for on the quads. They're going to be clover leaves, and then I'm going to make skew planars that are a bit longer for my FPV ground stations. Okay, so you're going to need your cables. You can buy the coax and the plugs and make them yourself, but it's easier if it's done already. Then I use 1.2mm MIG wire. It is a little thicker, but it works compared to the ones that are made with 0.8. They work. They give me a lot more range. I was flying this past week through trees and things, and these antennas I made with this are just way better. So I've got 2 bits of that. Now this is optional. It's a piece of blue pipe. It's a pneumatic pipe that we've got a bit at work, so I've got some offcuts. I'm going to use it on my receiver antennas that they stay upright and the coax is protected a bit more. You're going to need a pair of pliers to do the bending, a pair of side cutters to cut, a ruler. You're going to need this over here, which is, well, you don't need it, but it makes life easy. It's a clamp that I've screwed to my table so that I can hold the antenna there. You're also going to need a soldering iron, one that can preferably get to quite a high temperature. It makes life a little bit easier. I'm going to also be using my hot glue gun because I'm going to put a bit of glue around the joints to make them stronger. And then this is a bending jig I made. So first thing you're going to want to do is take some of your wire out. Mine was all neatly coiled. Okay. You want to try use a straightish piece. If you need to, you must just bend it till it's straight. And then use that. Because if it's not straight, it's not going to work as well. Okay. And you hold it. Okay. So now you've got a piece of wire. It's got a sharp end on one side. So what I do now is I'll put this to where I want it to go to and see how much of the sharp end is still overhanging. In this case, I've got about 1 mil. Okay. Here I've got about comma 3, comma 4 to go off. Now you'll see it's tapered there. What you want to do is you want to go 90 degrees to that, and you want to snip it off, and it gives you a nice squarish end. And then just check on your ruler again, and you know what, that's pretty damn close to what I'm going for. So let's just zero it up. There we go. It might be a little comma 2 longer, but you know what, it's close enough for what I need it for. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to repeat that process. If you're making a set, you need to repeat that process 7 times. If you are making just one antenna, it'll be either 3 or 4 times. Okay guys, now that I've got my 7 little wires cut, because these are going to be the high frequency ones, all 7 of them, I'm now going to have to make a new bending jig, because my current bending jig, which is set for a slightly lower frequency, only like most of the frequency lower, is my pen. Okay, so this is going to be 5705, and then I'm going to make one here for 5860. Okay, the reason I'm going 5860 is because the frequencies at the top of the band for Fat Shark and for my new system are both 5880. So my plan is to sit just below that. That way, if we need to go down, we've got a 3-channel band that should have pretty good antennas. So if we decide to fly on 5840, 5860 or 5880, we should have equally good reception. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly drill a hole in here. There we go. Blow that away. Okay, now here's something I learned the hard way. You test with another piece of wire first. Put it in, you bend it, grab your pliers, and you just finish the bend to 90, and then you measure it. My bend needs to be 13 millimeters, and you won't believe it. 13 millimeters, first attempt. Haha. Okay, so now I've got my bending jig right, which was just ultimate fluke, because normally last time it took me 4 holes to get it right. Okay, so that's that one done. That's that one, and this one, don't use it. Okay, so now you got to do the bending. Now I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to carry on and quickly finish off the other 6 of them. So what you do is you basically drop it into the hole, you bend it over 90 degrees, take your pliers, push them right up against, and you force it into a 90 degree. For the first couple, it is a good idea to just check them, just to make sure that you're getting them right. That's pretty much on the money. Okay, so then I'm going to do the other one, put it in. So I put it in like that, and I just bend it over. Okay, and then grab that, force it over, check it. Yep, 13 millimeters as well. Okay, now you'll see this one's a little skew. So I straighten it. Now this is where it gets tricky, because you kind of have got to eyeball it, but then you've got to match the rest to the eyeballed one. Okay, so you make sure that's at 90 degrees. What I do is I grab it across there. I grab it across there, and then grab it like that, and I put a kink in it. Then I work my way around to about halfway, and do the opposite side. Okay. Okay. Then you correct them and smooth out the bends. Try to get the 2 sides equal-ish. Okay. Now this is just gonna have to see how it goes. This is it's dependent on how you're doing it and what technique you're using. But this is the technique I use, and it seems to work. Okay, then you're gonna end up with something similar to that. I'm just not happy with this end, so I'm just gonna correct for it. There we go. Okay, this can take a while, so don't be phased if you spend half an hour on it, because once you get your technique down, it's pretty quick. Okay, last time I did this in one go, but anyway. Okay, so you're going to end up with something like that. Obviously you do want to try to get it as nice as you can, but you're going to end up with something like that. It's like a semicircle with the 2 things. Okay, now you need to keep the gap between the points there, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to solder it in. So now I'm going to quickly continue with the other 7 of these, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next step. Okay guys, I got all of my little thingies bent. Now I'm going to do this. It's a piece of tube. It's going to get the antenna, the long coax through it, and it's going to get a piece of heat shrink as well. So what I'm going to do is push the heat shrink over. Once I've soldered the whole thing together, I'm going to put that there. I'm going to shrink the tube just a little bit above it, and that's then going to hold it in place. Let's force this over here. Okay, then I'm going to do my top section, and I'm just going to glue onto the top of that. Okay, this isn't exactly straight, but that can be played with later. Okay, so first things first, let's pop this on and get where I'm going to make my incisions. Okay, now this is where you've got to be quite careful, because if you go too deep, you end up cutting into the braiding, and then it makes it really difficult. I really should have put this on afterwards, but anyway, okay. So now you just have to be careful with this and just go through the plastic. so that you've got the braiding below it. There we go. Okay, now that you've got the braiding, you've got to do this, and you've got to unbraid it. Okay. Yeah, if you do such a long section, it can be a little tricky, but just takes a little bit of effort. Okay, almost done. There we go. Okay, now that it's unbraided, this is going to be a skew planar wheel. So you need to divide it into 4 sections. So there we go. That's 1, that'll be 2, that can be 3, that can be 4. Okay. And then what I normally do is I just twist it to keep the strands together when I tin them. Okay. Just try and keep them a little better separated. 2, 3. Okay, now you'll notice these are quite long. They're going to get cut shorter now. Okay, once you've done that, you can then do the center spike. Just make sure that there's no little bits and pieces that are going to touch the center. Now the center, you want to make it quite short as you're comfortable with. What I actually do here, not with sidecars, with the X-Acto, on the edge of the table, I pick my point and I gently roll. Bear in mind, once again, if you push too hard, it's going to cut it, and you don't want that. Okay, there we go. I've now got that peeled off. You may want to make these, when you do this, make them a little longer, so that if you do make a bugger up, I'm trying to think of a polite way to put that, you've got space to repair it. Okay, now my clamp, very sophisticated the way I do this, and I'm going to clamp that in there. Okay guys, now that you're back, we're now going to just peel off some solder, and we're going to tin this whole section. Just move the things that are on the way out of the way. Okay. Clean the soldering iron tip, and start out wide. Okay. Now here, you need to watch how long you've got the heat on for, because if you keep it too long, you're going to end up melting things that you don't want to melt. Namely the insulation between the core and the shielding. But you do need to make sure you get solder everywhere. Okay, that's nicely done. Let's tin that up. Okay. Now what I forgot to do. Oh crap. Okay. What's that? I used a block of wood last time, which is too big now. Let's fold up my Leatherman. Okay. There we go. Oh, damn. Okay. So let's just tin this up quick. Okay. Now, as I said before, you need to tin these, and you need to do it nicely. If you don't, you're going to end up with burnt hands, and you're going to battle to solder this. This is my current antenna. This is my low frequency antenna. My high frequency is going to be polarized opposite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it there so I know I get it right, and I'm going to go this way instead. Now you're going to want to just offset them a little bit, and then you're going to come in like this. Okay, well, before I start, you need to, once you've tinned it, you need to just trim these down a bit, because the longer they are, it's going to affect your antenna's SWR. Not that I can measure it, I'm not risking it. Okay, so there we go, they're all nice and pilikied. Now, what I normally do, put a bit of solder on the tip of the iron, which is not dirty again. Okay, solder on the tip of the iron. And I'm going this way, so I'm just going to see which is easiest to solder it. There's an easy way to do it. Okay, now you place it on top. You do that, and it's done. Because I tinned it, it binds, it solders so quickly. You don't end up burning your hands at all. This one seems to be a bit of a bitch. Okay, so now that I've got that, once you've done that, you need to just check that they are all straight. If not, bend them accordingly, and then you need to match them to the center. So like this one can
down a bit. This one as well. This one can go in a bit. Okay, so ideally you want a flat base on there. So that's what I'm checking for now. It's pretty flat. But once you've got them right, they should all look the same. Okay. Do that. Then you need to just climb in and snip that the pilicky off. Okay, there we go. Now here's the fun part. This is the part that I love the most. Because now once you've got all these set correct and equally spaced and as they're supposed to be, you can then come in with the soldering iron. Clean it, make sure it's mud hot. And you do this, you touch the wires, you feed in a bit of solder on each side. And make sure that they all link up nicely. There we go. And that right there, guys, is an antenna. And lastly, I'm just going to heat gun this. Okay, that's that heat shrunk. Okay, now I'm going to attack the top with hot glue once I've made the second antenna. Okay, sorry guys, I forgot to actually record this. I was distracted, but this is basically what you're going to aim for as your end product. It takes a bit of finessing. What you got to do is you got to put the glue. I've got a gap here, so what I'll do is I'll put a little bit in, and then you just rotate it until it's, because with gravity, if your glue's hot enough, it'll actually smooth itself out. And I'm going to dip this, hopefully this afternoon, in what they call liquid tape. It's like a, yeah, it's like liquid tape basically. So if I dip this in theory, it's going to give it a nice clear, not clear, it's actually a black coating, which I think is going to look really nice. And it'll also protect it from rusting and any other things that would affect it. Okay, the other thing you can do is use your hot glue gun. Just reheat the glue. Use just the nozzle to reheat it, and then peel off what you don't want, like I'm doing now. So that's my set of antennas done. Glued, they're going to get dipped in liquid wire, so they're covered and they'll be black when I'm done. Just because you don't need to work accurately doesn't mean you shouldn't. Work as accurately as you can and you'll get better range with these antennas. A lot of guys just slapdash them and they do work, but you're going to need a higher milliwatt system to get the same range. In my next video, we're going to be covering the FPV onboard power system, where we'll be making these and converting it into an LC filter. So I'll see you guys for that in a few days' time. Thanks for watching. Please rate and subscribe.